Hello beautiful beings and welcome back to the channel. I hope this video helps you grow into the person that you want to be and into the truth of who you are. Today's topic is self-trust. Now, what happens if you put your awareness on your heart, put your hands here and say, I trust myself, I trust myself, I trust myself. And you really feel into that. What do you feel or notice in your body? Tension, relaxation. Do you have any thoughts or sensations coming up? Do you have any corresponding emotions? If you feel totally congruent with this and light and lit up by saying these words, and it really just rings true through and through for you, you might not need to watch this video, or you can watch it on like 2 speed or something. You guys know you can change the speed there. However, if you felt incongruency, or you felt something sticky or weird, or maybe even felt sad or strange when you said those words, I've got some information for you, because building self-trust is a cornerstone for building the life that we want and having the relationship with ourselves that we want and having relationships with others that we want. Because if we don't trust ourselves, we're not going to trust others. We're not going to build trusting relationships with others. We're not going to attract in trustworthy people. It's a mirror universe. Whatever we hold strongly within ourselves, we're going to attract around us for the reflection of it. So, symptoms of a lack of self-trust are anxiety, stress, overwhelm, depression, and stasis. So that's pretty broad, but if you feel any of those on a regular basis, especially before much happens during your day, right? Especially earlier on in the day, that's a symptom of lack of self-trust. Feeling unsafe in the world, attracting the wrong people, or having a low standard. And what you'll end up doing is you're not trusting yourself, so you're trying to gather safety around you, and you'll just kind of take whatever comes, but generally you're attracted to something that reflects unsafety, so you'll just attach to the wrong people thinking you're getting safety, but really you're getting what you're holding on the inside. Inaction. So if you have inaction, there might be an area in your life where you're static, right? So creative endeavor, moving forward in a relationship, taking steps towards your health. There might be something, one place in your life where you feel static, so you might not trust yourself in that particular area. Or you may be able to look at your life overall and be like, gosh, there's a lot of stasis. There's a lot of feeling of just not moving forward and not stepping into your dreams and into what you know you're supposed to. Another symptom of the lack of self-trust is ignoring your inner voice. So you've got that inner voice, and instead of listening to that, feeling that, and an inner voice might also be a feeling, you guys. We all are connected to our inner knowing and our wisdom in different ways. Some hear, some see, some feel, some sense, some smell. So it's just that thing that's there that you know you ignore or you second guess all the time. So if you're ignoring that inner voice, we're going to call it inner voice for time's sake. When you ignore that inner voice, you actually break more trust with yourself, because it's that inner wisdom and you're saying, nope, I can't do that because of this, X, Y, Z, blah, 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 blah. And meanwhile, that inner voice is your guiding light. And it's also trying to connect you into your true needs, right? So the logical linear brain might say, I need to do this job to make this much money so that I can be okay in the world. And you might listen to that voice. Meanwhile, there's another voice inside of you saying, I really want to play the piano. I really want to play the piano. I really want to write music, or I really want to paint, or I really want to teach children. You know, there might be that inner voice that to the logical linear mind, based on your goals of safety, security, money in the bank, blah, 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 it might not feel logically that is going to align with it, that positive desire. It might feel like going to college and getting that job is going to get you what you want. And not listening to that kind of inner voice is ignoring your true needs. What you need to feel full and happy and abundant on the inside is to, for example, play the piano. And that could lead to meeting someone, that could lead to a huge musical career, that could lead you to a million different things. But chances are, if you follow that inner knowing and you're listening to that inner voice, you're going to be led on a path that is more abundant for you than the path of doing what you should to try to be safe and secure. And I'm not saying that inner voice isn't telling you to go to school. Some people's inner voice is like, academics, learn this thing, get this information, get this under your belt. That could be an inner voice too. So it's just really learning to listen and tune in. You know, someone might have, sorry, I'm tickling my nose. Someone might have an inner voice that says, go do this course, go to Harvard, do this and that. But their logical inner mind says, oh, I'm not that smart. I didn't get the best grades here and here, so I shouldn't go do that. It's like whatever your pull is, whatever is truly lighting you up, you have to follow that, and not following that is a sign that you lack self-trust. And the more you ignore that, the more you compound a trustless relationship with yourself. Another sign, big sign of a lack of self-trust is overthinking. And it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about with that inner voice. Instead of following and going, okay, and following your curiosity and dabbling in it and playing in it and seeing what's there, you overthink. Oh, but this. And then you get so far away from that wisdom and that inner voice that now you're way up here, and you've used not only your voice, but the voice of your mother, your father, your peers in society to talk you out of your truth. And all of a sudden you're way over here and you're in indecision and overthinking. And those are kind of one and the same. Indecision and overthinking, those are huge signs of having a lack of self-trust. Indecision means, means there's probably things you've looked at in your past, that choices you haven't made well, and so you judge yourself for that and you can't make choices going forward. And a lot of times, this stems from childhood, but we don't want to really focus too much on the childhood in this video. Right now, we're focusing on what we can impact to stop compounding the problem and start making a shift towards self-trust. But in childhood, you could have had an overprotective parent, you could have been sheltered, criticized, or smothered. You went through some form of a experience in your childhood that kept you from developing self-trust, right? Instead of, okay, I trust you, go for it, be mindful when you climb that tree. It was, no, you can't do that, stay out of the tree, that's dangerous, what are you doing? That overprotective energy. Or you did go for things when you were younger and it was never good enough and you were always criticized. So it's like you lose this trust. It's like, wow, nothing really gets me relief. There is no decision that will work. So all that being said, I'm going to have a practice at the end of this video. I'm usually just channeling, but I channeled this information yesterday and I wasn't able to make a video, so I wrote it down. So forgive my averted gaze at times. I am going to do a practice at the end of this video to kind of build up your self-trust, so stick around for that. Okay, so how do you build trust? It's just like with a relationship with another human being. It has to be earned through consistency and good shows of character. So one thing I recommend is, if you do that, I trust myself, I trust myself, I trust myself, and you feel the crunchiness there, I want you to let that crunchiness show you why it's there. Why is that not a fluid feeling? I trust myself. You might have a memory of an experience, maybe something you did, maybe something someone did to you, something that happened. Forgiveness is the first step to trusting yourself. So when you can look back on a situation, I want you to go back to any situation where you feel you broke your own trust. For example, maybe you left a relationship and you regret it deeply because you see now you were not in the best space and that person was really amazing. You know what I mean? Having that experience can cause you to resent yourself and not trust yourself in the future because it's like, wow, I made that shit decision. How can I trust me again? So what you would do is you'd go back into that memory and you would show yourself grace and say, I am not who I was then. So I did make the best decision that I could at the time based on my wisdom, my emotional mastery, my state of being, and all the components involved. And then remembering that we romanticize the past sometimes, especially when we're like, oh, I should have never left, or I should have this, or I should have that. We romanticize things. So remember, because you're romanticizing it, you're leaving out bits of information. You made the choice you did based on a lot of information coming at you, and you need to forgive yourself. And that forgiveness means I recognize who I was at that time, not I made the perfect choice, all is well. It's I recognize I made the choice that I made at that time based on the information and the wisdom and the understanding that I had. And now I'm going to look and learn from that. What have I learned? How much have I grown from that moment? How much have I shifted? And what other shifts can I make when I look back at that past experience? What shift can I make? And this is kind of the healing exercise I was talking about, you guys. And when you get the lesson from the thing you haven't forgiven yourself for, or the thing that you regret, and you forgive the past version of you who is not who you are now, you're free and you're liberated because now you've got wisdom instead of regret. And that wisdom is going to empower you to show up more like the person you want to show up in the next relationship, in the next job, whatever it is moving forward. So let go of those regrets, forgive yourself. The next way to earn your trust, and you might have to do that with a few scenarios, you guys, especially if that self-trust thing is really crunchy. There's probably a few situations in your life that you are still blaming yourself for, or think you could have fixed, or you made the wrong moves in, and you just got to go in and get the wisdom, forgive the past you, and step into who you are now. The next thing is follow through, and I can't read my own handwriting. Oh, actually doing what your heart and inner child wants to do. So there's two pieces to this. This is going to be a long video, guys. I want you to have more follow through with yourself because that's going to build enormous trust. Think about when you're in a relationship with a friend or a lover or family member and they have really good follow through. Yeah, let's meet up for this and that, and they follow through. Yes, I will do that, and they show up on time and they follow through. The amount of respect we have for that person and kind of the relaxation of our nervous system around that person is pretty profound. We need to start giving ourselves that. But here's the caveat, not by fulfilling on things we don't actually want to do. So if you decide, I really need to run on the treadmill an hour a day and only eat salads, I'm just saying this is an extreme, that's not the follow through you need. If you follow through on that, you're still betraying yourself, because that's probably not what you or anyone needs to do. What you need to do is tap in and say, what's true for me? What have I always wanted to do? What really lights me up? And that might be ballet. That might be taking a dance class. That might be, what is that? What is that functional training? CrossFit. That might be weightlifting. That might be figure skating. Feel into how your body really wants to move. What you really like. It might be yoga. It might be going for long walks by streams or getting out into the world and walking at the mall around a lot of people. What do you really want to do? How do you really want to get your exercise? And follow through on that. Decide what you really want and follow through on that. A lot of times we don't have follow through on what we promise ourselves because we're promising ourselves something that doesn't actually align with our hearts. And of course, there's going to be times where you need discipline to get through things, but you're not going to need to force yourself to do anything that's good and true and natural for you. I love going to the gym, and I go between 2 to 5 days a week, depending on what feels right for me. So I check in with my energy levels. I check in with my mental space. I do this little check-in. Yesterday, I thought in my head, okay, I need to get to the gym. It would feel good. I checked in with my body and it's like, you don't have the real energy. It's like the second or third day of my period. You don't have the real energy right now to lift those weights and feel good and feel like you're benefiting your body. So instead, I went for an hour-long walk and talked to a friend of mine on the phone. So I got my body moving and got the exercise that I needed without doing that thing that my head told me that I should have done. And most days I love going to the gym, but yesterday just wasn't the day for it. So honoring that little voice, that inner voice that tells you what you really need, and having follow through. I followed through. I was like, I know I'm going to benefit and feel balanced and feel my best if I do this today. Not that I'm going to be able to avoid some guilt or shame from myself if I don't do it, but that my body was feeling a little sluggish from being recording and being in front of computers and reading and just like being inside all day. I needed that movement. I needed oxygen. I needed sunlight, and I gave it to myself. Tuning into those inner needs just takes a moment of, what do I really want and need? How could I get my body moving in a way that feels good for me? And it's the same thing with diet, and it's the same thing with hobbies and skills you want to acquire. You have to check in and see where you're at in each day and really go into the heart of it. And it needs to kind of light you up. It needs to either light you up or make you feel lighter. Because if it's making you feel heavy and it's feeling like drudgery, you're going against the current, and there's no necessity for that. So follow through on the things you actually want to do. And keep your promises to yourself. You know, I've mentioned this in other videos, but I used to promise myself all the time I was going to take myself to coffee shops so I could do some of my work there instead of in my beautiful office. And for years, I didn't do it ever once. I didn't do it except for when I was in Europe traveling, and it always felt really good. And I was always pretty inspired, and different things came through for me, and I had a different level of focus. And then I finally started doing it here where I live, And I just felt so alive and so good. And like, you know how like a parent can be like, yes, we're gonna go to Disneyland someday. Yeah, we are gonna do it. We are gonna do it. And then they finally do it. And you're just like thrilled. You're just like, oh my God, we're doing it. That's how I felt. Like I finally followed through on this little promise I had for myself. So those little promises you have for you, maybe you're like, I am gonna get that haircut, or I'm gonna go get that facial, or I'm gonna do this or that, or I'm gonna take that class. Keep your promises to yourself. You're gonna build tremendous self-trust and self-admiration when you do this. Values and integrity are the last thing that I want to talk about. You need to get in tune if you want to have a deep self-trust and a life of being able to trust the world and others because you trust yourself so deeply. You have to get in touch with what your values are. If you're going to be a person of integrity, you have to be in touch with what your values are. Now, some people had values instilled in them at a young age that weren't their own. Some people had amazing values nourished in them, and they are fortunate enough to be walking around with a solid sense of true inner value. And then there are those who had none at all, especially those who had conflicting parents or a lot of neglect in their upbringing, or maybe you were of the others who had values forced upon them. It's important to go within and examine your own values. And I've got a video that I'm making on this. It's probably made by now if you're watching this, and I'm linking it in the description below, about how to find your values and the litmus tests you need to run them through to know they're really your values. Because you could sit there and say, okay, Larissa, I value truth, and I value courage, and I value follow through. Like, these are all my values, but you can make a list of 20 things. But when we run them through a litmus test, it's going to probably narrow down to 2 to 5 things, because a core value, and that's what you need to know, is your core values, is something that you will not forsake for anything. So you will have to run through a litmus test. I'm going to give you the values you believe you hold and find your core values, and then you're going to be able to rely on yourself to align with those core values no matter what. And so imagine, you know, your best friend's core values. You know you can rely on them in these areas. Once you have this for yourself, you can look in the mirror and be like, I know you. I know your core values. I know your makeup and how I can trust you. And that core values piece is going to add to every area of your life. It's going to give you a really solid frame while leaving room for you to grow, because you grow on all of these values. They're like the foundation, and then the skyscraper is built. You guys, I hope this video really did help you grow, and I hope you got a lot out of it. And play it again and go through that I trust myself, I trust myself, I trust myself. And then look at what you're bumping up against that goes against that. Look at the belief, look at the memory coming in, look at the reason you think you can't trust yourself. You could even write down, I would trust myself if, and make that list as well. Just really get in there, really do the shadow work in this. And shadow work is when we go beneath the surface to understand all the pieces of something and why it's there. And once you look at your shadow, you bring everything into light, and then you have your power. So have fun with it, and check out that video on core values, and I will see you again for more growth.